Are you applying to hundreds of jobs but not landing even an interview or getting the offer? Stop what you're doing because it's not working and join my 5-day live job search jumpstart masterclass. It's 5 days, 1 hour a day, and bam, you will have everything you need to accelerate your job search. See the sign up link in the show notes. Welcome to Work Unscripted. I'm your host, Marlo Lyons. I'm here to toss aside the corporate scripts for unfiltered truths. We are tackling real work challenges with no sugarcoating, providing you with the strategies to thrive and find fulfillment in your career. It's time to turn the page. It's time to be unscripted. I've been broke. I mean, really broke. Working for corporate nearly my entire career and making good money, like well over 6 figures. You may be thinking I was a spendthrift. Nope. Starbucks lattes weren't even in my vocabulary. But I was strapped after every paycheck, just trying to make ends meet, pay the bills, pay for the kids' activities or camps, wondering whether I would ever be able to retire. Is this resonating with you? You're on the financial treadmill of money in, money out with little left to save for retirement? I've been there for most of my career, but now I can say I can comfortably retire right on time in my mid-60s. How did I go from broke less than 15 years ago to financial freedom? Today, I'm going to get unscripted and give you a real inside look at my personal experience of climbing the corporate ladder to financial freedom. We'll talk about crucial steps to financial independence, practical tips you can implement right away, and powerful insights into what financial freedom truly means. If you've ever felt like all your blood, sweat, and tears in the office aren't helping you build the financial wealth and fulfillment you deserve, this episode is for you. Now, back to how I got here. Not that long ago in my 30s, I had barely saved anything. My idea of financial planning was a bank savings account and putting money into the corporate 401k. When the 2008 recession hit, I got engaged. And then my fiance lost his job overnight and our dream wedding had to be scaled way back. Infertility followed, leading us down a costly and emotionally draining road of IVF and adoption. When we finally met with a financial planner in our early 40s, we had basically nothing. I'll never forget the moment he looked at our finances and said, "You'll never retire at this rate." Every chart was covered in red. But instead of panicking, we followed his exact plan. We budgeted aggressively, invested wisely, and our kids wore only free hand-me-downs for the first 7 years of their lives. It was brutal at times. Fast forward to today, we have 2 incredible teen daughters, financial stability, and the confidence to retire comfortably. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. That's why whenever I'm asked, what is the one piece of advice you'd give a new college grad or someone who is midway through their career, the answer is always the same. Always. Talk to a certified financial planner now. That brings me to today's guest. Randy Thurman is a CPA, certified financial planner, author of 7 books, and the owner of Retirement Investment Advisors in Oklahoma City. Randy is someone I've trusted for financial insights and advice since my early days as a TV news reporter. What I love about Randy is he is about more than just working to save money. He's about living your best, your most fulfilled life. Randy, perhaps like many of you and me, didn't grow up wealthy. He worked his way through college and took out loans. After getting his MBA, he decided to go into banking.
When I was a banker, I didn't enjoy banking. And I prayed that I would have a sign of something to do for the rest of my life, a career that I could have a passion for. So I'd saved up about a little over $6,000. And we had a stockbroker client of the bank, and he told me the stock is poised to move. You know, I'm thinking he means up, right? So I got the financial statements and analyzed those, and it looked like a pretty good company. And so I invested half of my life savings in this little stock called Kelly Johnson's. And within 6 months, I learned what Chapter 11 meant, which is bankruptcy. So I lost about half my life savings. Then he calls me up and he said, "I'd like to make it up to you." Now, I'm thinking, what a guy, right? What a guy. He's looking out after me. So he had this oil well stock that just hit a well and no one knows about it. So we got to move fast. You know, all these red flags should have been going up, but I'm thinking emotionally right now. I got to make this up. So I invest the other half of my life savings in a stock called Plano Petroleum. I bought at 40, and within 2 weeks it was at 6 in 2 weeks. So what took me basically 7 years of working minimum wage jobs to accumulate, I lost in 6 months and 2 weeks. And I cannot even begin to describe the pain that was in terms of losing.
How many of us have lost money or lost a job or a house or a partner or a spouse? And that loss puts us in a precarious position. But there is learning in everything. Randy was actually grateful for that learning experience so young.
It's a funny thing about life. It's the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I knew right then what I wanted to do is be a financial advisor. And that's how I became a financial advisor. So I went back to school and got some finance classes and accounting classes, except for my CPA, got my CPA, the CFP, got my CFP, and off I went.
Randy wasn't chasing money. He may not have known it at the time, but he was chasing fulfillment.
Money's important, but it's not everything, right? It's not everything, and you have to be careful that you don't make money your God in essence, and that's your priority. It's important, but it should not be the priority. We talk about personal, professional, physical, family, financial, spiritual, giving back, and learning. So those are the areas. So to have a balanced life, you need all those things.
He says focusing on that list, personal, professional, physical, family, financial, spiritual, giving back, and learning holistically helps put money in perspective with his clients. Randy focuses on all those areas personally and professionally with each client because each plays a role in his life and his clients' lives. He came up with a list of where to focus his attention after reading the 10 Natural Laws of Successful Time and Life Management, Proven Strategies for Increased Productivity and Inner Peace by Hiram Smith, a book which was life-changing for him.
In the book, it talks about what are your value systems, what's important to you, and really asking that question and not just giving an answer of this is what the world wants to hear, this is what the world wants to see, this is what's important to me and what the value systems for me, and just refining it.
It's no great secret. I talk about values being the foundation for fulfillment, and having financial stability and financial freedom is key to that for most people I talk to. It's impossible to feel at peace or fulfilled if you're working your butt off and yet struggling every single day financially, or you worked hard for a company for 25 years only to be laid off, or you aren't making enough money to support yourself and you're wondering where your next meal is coming from or whether you can pay your rent this month. I've been there, and it's not fun. When those things happen, though, we rarely pause and take stock in how we got there and how we want our lives to unfold. We're so busy trying to scrape by and survive, or we're so angry at our previous employer that we aren't focused on what really matters, what we truly want. Maybe you want to be rich. Maybe you want to be comfortable. Maybe you want to be financially stable. It's all within your reach, whether you work for yourself or a corporation. Now, I have heard my whole life that you can only build wealth working for yourself, and you can't get rich working for someone else, aka, that big corporation or small business. But Randy says anyone can become rich, no matter what salary you're earning.
You can. I think it's a little more challenging, but you can. And I'm about to come out with the book probably in another year or so, but how the ranch hand became a millionaire. And I had a ranch hand. And as a client, I don't know if you know much about ranch hands, but they don't make a lot of money. So we started him out on a $150 a month plan when he was very young, early 20s. And about 5 years ago, I said, congratulations, you've got 2 commas in your investment account. And that's kind of a cool thing. But it took time, and it took investing well and diversifying well and doing a lot of right things. And also one of the main things, every time he got a raise, he would put half of that into his retirement account. So yes, you can get wealthy working for someone else, but you gotta do it right.
With that settled, what does right mean? It means following 5 steps laid out in many of Randy's books, specifically the book that I like the most, More Than a Millionaire. First, maintain a positive cash flow. That means if you're getting a salary, you have a cash flow in, but be mindful of what is going out.
Spend less than you make. What a concept. What a concept. I've got a client that, he makes $1 million a year and he spends $1.1 million a year. It can be done. So, you can't accumulate wealth that way. It just doesn't work. So I keep trying to get him to spend less. He's like, I'm just the normal average person, and that's what he really believes. So I've got another client that she's made about $25,000 a year, give or take, and she's accumulated well, and she's done well, and she's financially. Now I'm trying to get her to spend some money and take vacations and stuff, and it's just hard to do. So, but here's two examples of two extreme incomes, and one's financially independent, and one's never going to be financially independent. And you have to just decide what you want to be. So positive cash flow is what starts all that.
So understand the nuances. Really write down how much you make after taxes and everything you spend money on.
A lot of times when people come to that, not always, but a lot of times when people talk about, I say, well, let's look at your budget. Let's look at what you do. And I'm like, okay, you go to Starbucks every day and get a latte. Let's add that up and type of thing. Is that something that's more important to you than your financial future type of thing? And we really have to work on it because, again, if you invest first and spend what's left, it seems to work out. If you spend first and invest what's left, it doesn't seem to work out.
And it might mean figuring out creative ways to not spend money on essentials. Remember what I told you that we were broke? I mean, like really broke, barely able to pay our bills. And I was working as an entertainment lawyer, but I was living in Los Angeles and it's expensive there. So I would go to 4 grocery stores every single week to buy what we needed. Why? Because I bought everything I could with coupons. I became one of those serious super coupon clippers. Our food bills for 4, including baby formula and other essentials, were sometimes under $25 a week. No joke. I gamified how much I could not spend each week and still get everything we needed because that meant we could follow the financial planner's plan for us. I was in my 40s at this point, and it was painful to squeeze so much out of barely anything. It's much easier and less painful the earlier you start saving.
Studies show that for someone that saves for between 25 and 35 and stops, and those that save between 35 and 65, the one that started with 25 to 35 has more money than the others. But, all you can do is all you can do. You can't do anything about the past. You can look forward. And instead of maybe saving 10%, you need to save 15%, type of thing in your 40s. But it still needs to be done well and right.
The problem is when you get that first job, you aren't making a lot and you're on your own for the first time, trying to figure it all out. And you may think you can put off this first step and saving in general.
When you analyze why do people fail financially, that's part of that is procrastination, because there never seems to be a good time to start. You're in your 20s and, I'm young, I've got a lot of time on my hands. I'll wait till I start making more and get a little older, then I'll start. In your 30s, you've got 2 kids on your hand, let's say, and they're needing new clothes, it seems like every week, type of deal. And then you're in your 30s and like, well, my kids are in college, I'm suffering from maltuition. You're in your 40s and that happens. And you're in your 50s, you're like, well, things just aren't breaking like they used to. I wish I'd started earlier. So the main thing is start that inertia.
That inertia means not only maintaining a positive cash flow, it also means start managing your debt wisely. That's step number 2.
Sometimes when people have a lot of credit card debt, I said, I've got a place that can make you 18% guaranteed. And they go, wow, where's that? Pay off your credit cards, pay them down.
And look at other debt. Do you have student loans, for example? Nothing to be ashamed about, but you have to work in those expenses with everything else, including basic living expenses and housing, and figure out how to have, the least amount of debt.
When you're debt-free, it is a wonderful thing.
Step 3 is to find the right home. If you're considering buying a home, think about how much you want to spend on the mortgage, homeowners insurance, and property tax, and overall costs of home maintenance before you purchase. If you're in a home already, consider whether your home is making you struggle to achieve your financial independence.
Well, we see people sometimes are home poor, meaning that they bought a home that's 42% of their income, and because that's what the lender said that they can afford. And that just crushes them everywhere else. just crushes them, and I just don't think that's a good thing. So really, 28%, if that's your only debt of your home loan, it should be debt to income, or 35% of all your debt to income. Those are percentages that are pretty good staples. But just because they tell you can borrow this much doesn't mean you should borrow that much. So be careful.
That happened to us. Oh, yeah. When my husband decided to go back into corporate, he accepted a job in the Bay Area. We sold our house in LA and bought a home in Los Gatos, one of the most expensive zip codes in the country. It was a pretty small home for the area, but living there cost us big time. The property taxes alone were tens of thousands of dollars. We couldn't eat out. We could barely afford a babysitter, let alone a meal in a restaurant. And we were both working corporate jobs in tech, making great money. So this point of being house poor really resonated with me. And in fact, the reason we left Los Gatos was because we wanted a better life. So when we moved, we were a bit more careful, choosing a home in an area where if one of us lost our job, we wouldn't struggle to survive. In Los Gatos, if one of us lost our job, we would have lost our home in less than 3 months because we had no savings. And that brings us to number 4, prepare for a rainy day. That can mean losing your job, losing your house, unexpectedly losing a spouse or a partner, any setback that makes you financially unstable.
You want to make sure that you have the foundation, which is be a cash reserve for emergencies. Because, you may lose your job. I mean, the transmission goes out, things happen. And as a general rule of thumb, you want 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses in cash and a reserve for those types of items. And that needs to be invested in something very liquid. And I know it doesn't earn a lot of money, a lot of interest, but that's not the purpose for that money. So that's that. So if you don't have that set up, then you really need to have that set up.
You just never know when something will happen. I remember when Randy lost his house in the 1999 F5 tornado that swept through Oklahoma City.
The only thing left in our house was a 3x3 piece of carpet, and that's where we were on top of that carpet. It took everything around us. So it was a scary experience. But, a rainy day, again, going back to the 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses for cash reserves, you need to have that. Things happen. Unforeseen, we call them black swan events. They happen, and we just can't predict them. That's kind of the definition of black swan events. You can't predict that they're going to come. The fires right now. So those are black swan events, I think. So you better have an emergency fund because you're going to need it someday. I just don't know. I don't know when. And that's okay if you have it. It's just a load off your back when these things happen. When you've got the financial resources to bridge to the next step.
Truth right there. We moved to Arizona, and guess what? My husband's company did mass layoffs, and my company called people back to the office. So we both lost our jobs at the same time. But that was okay, because by this time, we had reserves. And I had time to ramp my side coaching business into a full-time business, while my husband had time to land his next opportunity. We didn't stress too much because we had a plan for that rainy day. Though it doesn't rain that much here in Arizona, I digress. Finally, step 5, create a shelter against financial storms. In this case, we're talking about short and long-term disability and life insurance. When you work for a company, many times you're offered these options and some of them come at no cost to you. But heed this warning. When you leave, you would need to pay astronomical amounts of money to convert those policies to personal policies. So while it's nice that companies provide those to you, you at least need your own life insurance and early in your career.
Life insurance for me is it completes your financial plan. It completes your financial plan. It pays off your debts. It allows the surviving spouse to have income for the rest of their working life. It allows to be financially independent. So, and when you're young, it is so much cheaper, and it's something to try to get. Now, personally, I like if you're 40s, in your 40s, I like maybe a 15 or 20 year term policy. That's what I like personally. And because at the end of that time frame, you should be self-reliant, financially self-reliant, or very close. You don't have the kids at home, maybe.
So those are the 5 steps. Maintain a positive cash flow, spend less than you make, manage debt wisely, find the right home, and prepare for a rainy day and create a shelter against financial storms. Seems pretty easy, yet most people focus only on one thing, the benefits they get from their company in the form of maybe a 401k or an ESPP, which is an employee stock purchase plan, where you can purchase company stock at a discounted rate.
Well, those stock purchase plans are nice, but to me, they're icing on the cake. I don't know that I would depend on those. And also, it's nice if you start with those when in your early 20s, because my personal experience with individual stocks has not done well. All right. When I started out and I lost my life savings. So I'm a big believer in exchange traded funds and maybe mutual funds. So you diversify that away, that business risk away, because you don't want to be 10 years down the road and have a ton of shares in Enron.
If you don't know what Enron is, people lost their jobs and their life savings invested in company stock in one fell swoop when widespread internal fraud was discovered and the company filed for bankruptcy. So the goal of this podcast, if you haven't figured it out yet, is to help you realize you don't want to work your whole life for nothing. Meaning, when you hit retirement age, you can't retire and you're working until your death. If that doesn't sound appealing, start doing something today with your paycheck and your tax return, no matter what age you're at.
That $150 a month could mean millions to you at 65. So is it, you got to decide, is that worth millions to you down the road? And a lot of people are into instant gratification. And it doesn't mean you got to just eat bread and water type of thing, but just make a budget and design a life, design a plan. And I think financial advisors can help out a lot in that area. So
when we were looking for a financial advisor, we went through 3 different ones before we found one we liked in LA. I know. I should have just called Randy, right? Because he has some sage advice on picking a financial advisor.
I think there's 3 primary questions you ask that will basically eliminate, well, I guess I should say, basically it'll give you a top 10% advisor. How's that? So one, I think a certified financial planner, I'm big into CFPs. That shows that they actually at least have a minimum standard in terms of their education and knowledge. And you can go online and look for certified financial planners in your area and Google that, and you can get a search engine to find those. I also think you absolutely need to find someone that's a fiduciary on all accounts, all times. Now, fiduciary means that they must by law take your interest first, as opposed to a suitable standard where they just have to recommend what's suitable for you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be better, but it does eliminate a lot of the conflict of interest involved. So fiduciary is an absolute, I think, in that. And third, I prefer fee only. I'm a little biased because we're fee only. And that means who compensates the advisor? Are the product companies compensating the advisor, or is the client compensating the advisor? And if you get those 3, you're getting a top 10% advisor.
You always want the client to compensate the advisor. So there are no conflicts of interest with an advisor trying to sell you a product. If you're listening this far, you might be thinking, dang, this just seems like a lot of work and it's not fun. I want to have fun.
It's not immediate gratification, that's for certain. So you have to decide, and if you budget for your fun, type of thing, then you budget for your fun and you make it work. It's kind of like a lot of people spend first and then they'll invest what they have at the end of the month. Those are people that are having a hard time getting by. And then you have others that invest first and do the financial things first and then spend what's left. And those are the people that are doing quite well. So you have to decide what's important to you.
And that brings it full circle back to your values. That's the foundation of your financial freedom. Understand what is important to you personally, professionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Is family, volunteering, and giving back and learning important to you? And if so, what do they mean to you? Understanding your values and living your values ensures peace and fulfillment. And it ensures all that hard work you're doing every day in the office is for your benefit and perhaps the benefit of others.
And the funny thing about giving back, even though you shouldn't do it for this reason, is when you give back, it always seems to come back many folds back to you. And you don't give it for that purpose, but it's funny how that works out. It just does.
Yes, it does. Now create that plan for how to invest your tax refund and plan for your retirement today. You can find Randy's books on Amazon. My personal favorite is More Than a Millionaire, but he has 7 books for you to peruse what's best for you. And you can contact him at randy@theretirementpath.com. Work Unscripted is produced and edited in partnership with the team at Palm Tree Podco and 21 Digby. The content for this week's episode was created by me, Marlo Lyons.